Okay, so this section, we are going to talk about complementary and supplementary angles, 2.3. So what is a complementary angle? A complementary angle are going to be two angles that add to 90 degrees. Two angles that add to 90 degrees. If you look over to the right, you can see you have angle A and angle B. So they're saying these two angles are complementary because if I add 32 plus 58, I will get 90 degrees. So they are complementary angles. Supplementary angles, this again is going to be two angles that add to 180 degrees. So two angles that add to 180 degrees. So if you look at the two angles to the right, you have angle C and angle D. They're 134 and 46. If I add those together, you will get 180. Next, we have adjacent angles. So what are adjacent angles? Adjacent angles are angles that share a common side and a common vertex. So they're angles that share a common side and a common vertex. So if you look at the picture to the right, the common side is this right here. It's the side that goes through the middle there. The common vertex, they're all coming to one point. So in this picture, they're labeling this angle here angle 1, and then they're labeling this angle over here angle 2. That doesn't mean that it's 1 degree and 2 degree. It's just a label of the angle. So those would be considered adjacent angles. Our last definition is a theorem. What is a theorem? A theorem in geometry is like a rule. It is a rule that is always true. It's a rule that is always true. Okay, so example 1, we are determining whether the angles are complementary, supplementary, or neither. So from the last page, complementary means they have to add to 90. Supplementary means they have to add to 180. Okay, so what we're going to do for A, B, and C, we're going to add these up and see what we get. So for letter A, I'm going to do 158 plus 22. So if you need a calculator, please use it. You should get 180 degrees. So 180 means that it is what? Supplementary. And you can abbreviate it SUPP if you'd like. Going over to letter B. So we're going to add 85 and 15. When you add 85 and 15, you get 100 degrees. So 100 degrees is not complementary. It's not supplementary. So letter B, we're going to write neither. And now the last one, letter C. I'm going to add 35 and 55 together. And that's going to give me 90 degrees. which means we call it complementary. Okay, going down to example 2. Now we're going to use that other vocab word from the last page. We're going to tell whether the numbered angles are adjacent or non-adjacent. So 2 things I want to make note of. Do you see these numbers that are in the angles? Those are not how many degrees it is. It is a label. It's another way that we identify angles without having to name it using letters. Okay, the other thing I want to remind you is in adjacent angles, they have to share a common side and a common vertex. So looking at the first one here, if you look at A or at letter A, 1 and 2, they are not sharing a common side, and they are also not connected at the same vertice. So this is an example of non-adjacent. And I like to abbreviate adjacent ADJ. So they do not have a common side and they do not have a common vertex. If you're looking at letter B, any ideas with letter B? What do you think? Are 3 and 4, are they adjacent or non-adjacent? So they are adjacent because they share this side right here, and they both come to that same point. Going over to letter C, this is the tricky one. They are sharing a common vertice. However, the 2 sides of angle 5 and angle 6, they are not overlapping. So do you see how there's almost like there's 3 angles here? This would be non-adjacent. This is non-adjacent. They are sharing that common vertex, but they don't have a common side to share. All right, going down to example 3. This is a different way to look at complements and supplements. Just a refresh. Complement means add to 90. Supplement means add to 180. So for letter A, they're asking you, A is the complement of C. If A is 47 degrees, we have to find the measure of angle C. So in order to do this, we are going to subtract because we know both A plus C has to equal 90 degrees. I know I have 47 degrees so far. So I have to figure out how much more I need to get to 90. And that would be 43 degrees. So angle C is 43 degrees. Anytime they are asking you to find the complement or the supplement, you're going to be subtracting. Going down to letter B, very similar. It says P is the supplement of R. R is 36, find P. Well, supplement means 180. So if I have to get to 180 and I only have 36 degrees, I have to subtract those to figure out how much more I need. So it looks like I need 144 more degrees for my supplements. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is a theorem. That was another one of our vocab words. It's called the congruent complements theorem. So if you look at this picture here, this theorem is showing 3 angles. It is showing angle 2, 1, and 3, and they're all connected at the same vertice. So the congruent complements theorem says if angle 2 plus angle 1 is going to equal 90, so that means if angle 2 and angle 1 make a 90-degree angle, okay, and angle 3 plus angle 1 also make a 90-degree angle, so these make 90-degree angle too, then because they share angle 1, angle 2 has to be congruent to angle 3. Just like the congruent complements theorem, we have a congruent supplements theorem. So this one says if angle 5 plus angle 4 equal 180, so if you're looking at the picture, there's 5 and 4, it's making a straight line. So if those two are making a straight line, and angle 6 plus angle 4 are also equal to 180, making a straight line. Here's angle 6. Then because they share angle 4, we can say angle 5 has to be the same as angle 6. So if I show you a little quick example what I mean by this, let's say I tell you that angle 4 is 120 degrees. I'm just telling you it's 120 degrees. In order for 4 and 5 to form a line, I need to get to 180, right? So the only thing angle 5 can be is 60 degrees. If I tell you the same thing about 4 and 6, 4 and 6 are forming a line. So that means 6 also has to be 60 degrees to get to 180. Do you see how 5 and 6 are now the same? That's what they're talking about. Okay, so if they're sharing the same angle, that means the two other angles have to be the same. So let's do a couple quick examples with this. Angle 7 and angle 8 are supplementary, which means they add to 180. 8 and 9 are supplementary. They add to 180. Name a pair of congruent angles. So if 7 and 8 have to make a line and 8 and 9 have to make a line, the only pair that we haven't used is 7 and 9. They are going to be congruent. So angle 7 is going to be congruent to angle 9. And that's by our congruent supplements theorem that we just talked about. Going down to letter B, 1 and 3 are complementary, which means they add to 90. 3 and 5 are complementary, which means they add to 90. Name a pair of congruent angles and explain your reasoning. So this one is a little tricky because if you look at the picture, you have angles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We did not talk about angle 2 and angle 4, so we don't care about those. We're only concerned with the ones we talked about. We talked about 1 and 3, and we talked about 3 and 5. So the only pair we haven't had together are 1 and 5. So that means 1 and 5 have to be congruent by the congruent complements. Okay. We have 2 more to do. So now we're going to look at complements and supplements with algebra. So remember your words. It says in letter A, angle ABD and DBC are complementary, which means they have to add to 90. If they are adding to 90, I'm going to take my 2 angles I know, 5x and 4x, and I'm going to equal 90. So 5x and 4x is 9x is equal to 90. And I'm going to divide everything by 9. You should get 10. The reason I knew I had to use 90 was because the problem said complementary. Complementary goes with 90. And here's our last one. They're telling you ABD and DBC are supplementary. Supplementary is 180. They want you to find the value of the variable. So these two pieces, the 3x plus 80 and the plus 7x, we have to add those up, and it has to equal 180 because the problem said supplementary. So to solve this, you have to combine your like terms. 3x and 7x is going to give you 10x. Plus 80 is going to equal 180. So to get x by itself, I'm going to minus 80 from both sides. I get 10x is equal to 100. And I have to divide by 10. And you actually get 10 again. So your answer for letter B is also 10.